Look, I have had this on my mind all week because Bleacher Report is labeling Bryce Young the potential biggest bust for the Carolina Panthers this season. It is a harsh take that places the entire weight of this franchise on his shoulders despite a surrounding roster that still looks significantly thin at the skill positions. This report matters because it ignores the reality that a quarterback needs actual help to succeed in this league. My name is Lucas, and if you agree that Young is being unfairly scapegoated, please hit the like button, subscribe, and drop your name and city below. Let's get into it. Bryce Young remains the absolute focal point of our Carolina Panthers, acting as the primary barometer for whether our franchise finds success or falls into further dysfunction this upcoming season. As the face of this organization, the weight of our collective expectations rests squarely on his shoulders, regardless of the reality that football is a complex team sport requiring harmony across all positions. Bleacher Report analyst Mo Moton recently stirred the pot by identifying Young as a potential season-ending bust, placing him in a category alongside Xavier Legette and Jalen Phillips. Moton highlighted the fact that the Panthers are not currently planning to sign Young to a contract extension this offseason, a strategic choice similar to what the Houston Texans are doing with C.J. Stroud. Here's what people are missing, though. While Moton notes that Young must improve as a high-volume passer, he also admits that our brutal schedule featuring the Chicago Bears, Philadelphia Eagles, Denver Broncos, and Seattle Seahawks creates a massive hurdle. Our fan base feels a deep, nagging frustration because we know how difficult it is to judge a quarterback when the supporting cast is consistently ranked among the worst in the league. CBS sports analyst Jared Dubin recently placed our offensive group at a dismal 28th overall, and Warren Sharp ranked our offensive line 12th, while others have noted a complete lack of viable talent at the tight end position. It feels inherently unfair to label Young a bust when he has been left to navigate a minefield without reliable weapons. If we are truly being honest about the path forward, we have to look past the quarterback and examine the front office failures that left our roster so thin at the skill positions. The most concerning aspect of the current situation is that the Carolina Panthers spent their primary first-round draft capital on a lineman who is unavailable to suit up this season. This decision highlights a recurring pattern where the front office prioritizes defensive or line depth while leaving our young quarterback to operate with minimal proven weaponry at the skill positions. We find ourselves in a precarious cycle where the organization expects immediate, high-volume production from a signal caller while simultaneously surrounding him with an offensive unit ranked 28th by CBS sports analyst Jared Dubin. The backstory here is rooted in a philosophy that prioritizes long-term roster construction over immediate support for the most vital position on the field. History tells us that even the most talented passers struggle when they lack reliable pass catchers or a standout tight end to move the chains. We look at the landscape and see Chuba Hubbard ranked 27th among starters, which underscores the lack of offensive firepower available to help ease the pressure on Bryce Young. And I cannot stress this enough, the reality of our schedule presents a monumental challenge as we prepare to face formidable opponents like the Chicago Bears, Philadelphia Eagles, Denver Broncos, and Seattle Seahawks. The coaching staff led by Dave Canales is likely internalizing the pressure to prove that their scheme can function without elite personnel, yet they must also be concerned about the potential for regression against such a difficult gauntlet of defenses. While the front office under David Tepper remains focused on building a durable foundation, they are walking a fine line. If our offensive output remains stalled at 26th in total passing yards, the narrative surrounding our quarterback will only grow more negative, regardless of whether that criticism is truly earned by the player himself. The spotlight on Bryce Young has never been brighter, and for us as Panthers fans, the stakes this season have reached a critical tipping point. We are looking at a campaign where the perception of our quarterback could define the long-term direction of this entire franchise. Bleacher Report analyst Mo Moton suggests Young is a prime candidate for a bust season, yet that perspective ignores the heavy reality of a roster still struggling to find its footing at the skill positions. Our depth chart remains thin, and with the offense ranked 28th by CBS Sports, the pressure on Young to produce with limited support is immense. And that changes everything regarding how we evaluate his progress. Without a clear, long-term commitment on a contract extension, every snap becomes a test of his viability under head coach Dave Canales. When we look at our upcoming gauntlet against formidable opponents like the Chicago Bears, Philadelphia Eagles, Denver Broncos, and Seattle Seahawks, the degree of difficulty is undeniable. Facing the toughest slate of opposing defenses by DVOA means that even a minor regression could be masked by the simple reality of who we are playing each week. These matchups will test our resolve and dictate our standing within the NFC South. If our receiving core, including Xavier Legette and others, fails to elevate their game, the burden placed on Young will become unsustainable. The team has invested heavily on the defensive side of the ball, leaving the offensive infrastructure in a precarious state. While we hope for a breakthrough, the current landscape suggests a narrow path to the postseason. We must remain realistic about these challenges as we prepare for a season that will ultimately reveal whether our front office has built the foundation necessary for a true turnaround in Carolina. Bryce Young remains the heartbeat of our franchise, serving as the ultimate litmus test for our team's trajectory. The upside here is clear because if he takes a significant leap, the Panthers transform from a rebuilding project into a legitimate contender overnight. He possesses the tools to be a high-volume passer, and success would validate the immense investment we have made in him since he was drafted. What makes this even bigger is the external pressure mounting against him. Bleacher Report's Mo Moton recently highlighted Young as a potential bust for the season, placing him in a conversation alongside players like Jalen Phillips and Xavier Legette. Moton argues that a difficult schedule featuring matchups against teams like the Chicago Bears, Philadelphia Eagles, Denver Broncos, and Seattle Seahawks might actually force a regression. While it is true that we face the toughest slate of opposing defenses by DVOA, labeling Young a bust right now feels prematurely dismissive of the reality surrounding him. The fact is that we lack viable tight ends, and our skill positions were ranked 28th by CBS Sports analyst Jared Dubin. Expecting a young quarterback to carry a team when he has essentially no established help is a tall task. Here is where I land on this. Putting the burden of our entire offensive output solely on Young is fundamentally unfair. While analysts point to his lack of a contract extension as a warning sign, we should remember that the Houston Texans are also not extending their quarterback yet, proving this is a league-wide trend rather than a specific indictment of our situation. We cannot expect brilliance from a signal caller who is essentially forced to operate with one hand tied behind his back, while the front office prioritizes defensive spending over offensive weaponry. Young deserves more support before we decide he is the culprit for failure. As we look toward the future of this franchise, the trajectory of Bryce Young defines our path forward. While some analysts like Mo Moton at Bleacher Report label Young as a potential bust due to the lack of an extension and a daunting schedule, we must remain level-headed as fans. Now here's the thing, calling a quarterback a bust while our supporting cast remains ranked 28th by Jared Dubin is simply ignoring the reality of the situation. We have poured resources into the defense while neglecting the skill positions, leaving our young leader to face the toughest slate of opposing defenses by DVOA without the help he desperately needs. If we expect success, we must recognize that this is a team effort rather than a solo act by one individual. Heading into this season, we should feel guarded yet hopeful because our offensive line, ranked 12th by Warren Sharp, is the only bright spot currently holding this unit together. Without a viable tight end and with questionable depth at receiver, we are setting an impossible standard for a young man to reach on his own. We cannot expect a different result if we do not change the infrastructure surrounding our signal caller. It is not fair to place the full weight of the team on his shoulders when the front office has failed to provide the necessary tools to compete in such a difficult division. Given the harsh reality of our current roster construction and the challenging schedule we face, do you believe Bryce Young will ultimately prove his doubters wrong by the end of this campaign? If you enjoyed the video, do not forget to like it and subscribe to the channel. Keep pounding. I'll see you in the next one.